Hi, my name is Emeka Warrell, and welcome to Growth is Personal. Each week, I share insights and strategies that will equip you to accelerate your personal and professional growth and bring you conversations that will empower you to thrive in life, career, and business. All right, welcome to the show. Welcome to Growth is Personal podcast. Today we have a special guest. Her name is Modupe Akinsiun. I hope I,
Akinsiun. No, you didn't.
hope I pronounced it very
Yeah,
well,
that
but
was a good
I'm glad
try.
I'm glad to have you on the show today, and you're doing a great and amazing thing on online and even outside the online space. And I followed you for quite a while, so yeah, I hope you're not surprised when I reached out to you to to have this podcast. But I've been following your work, and I think I'm trying to recollect. There's probably a time where we connected prior to now, but we didn't get to meet. But I think I walked around an environment where you passed through. I don't know if
Oh,
you,
really?
yeah,
Wow.
because I looked. I don't know if you know Maureen Iyasale,
Oh, yes. Job
job
mark, of
bag.
course. Yeah.
Yeah, so I
Oh,
know because I was part of a recruitment team then, and we were trying to get someone for a
uh,
client. I think
in
one of these
pharma,
LinkedIn brands. Sorry.
in pharma, she hired me for I think her clients in the pharma space.
Yeah, Family Space. I know the name rings a bell, but I wasn't part of
Right.
that team that did the recruitment, but I know that name. I
Oh,
saw that name pass the file. So yeah,
oh,
so
right.
that's I was like, I
That's
know
like
I've
9 years ago
9 years
now.
ago. Yeah, yeah. But great to
Interesting.
have you on the show.
Nice
I
to
know
meet
that you
you.
have so much value to offer to our listeners today. So if you're watching on YouTube, please give us a subscribe, like. If you have questions to ask Dupe, you can drop it in the chat session and I'll find a way to get across to her. But also if you're listening on Spotify or Apple as well, leave us a question and rate this podcast as well. So Dupe, I like to give my guest the opportunity to introduce himself and talk a little bit about their background. So do you want to talk about yourself and your journey
Okay.
to this point?
Oh, so where do I start from? In the beginning.
In the
Okay.
beginning.
So it's such a pleasure to be here and well done for the amazing work you're doing yourself. I think it was one of your posts that brought me close, to your profile on LinkedIn, and I'm like, oh, okay. So I wasn't quite surprised when you reached out. Maybe I was surprised, but it was just like, okay, wow, I'm happy to collaborate with this brand as well to make this happen. So thank you for having me. And I want to say thank you to everyone joining, irrespective of where you're at right now. I want you to know that Emeka, is always looking to add value. So it's a pleasure to have you
Yeah,
here.
thank
Right. So about my background, I'm a trained chemical engineer. And just like Maureen, I
yeah.
studied chemical engineering, but what made me to study chemical engineering was a scare I had in high school. I remember I was during one of the geography lessons, and the teacher had said, you know, the ozone layer was getting depleted, and at a time, a time will come when the whole world will get submerged in water, and that kind of scared me. And I'm like, oh my God, what? What do we do to save the planet? So I said, you know what, I'm going to be a part of the solution. And my
Mm,
my goal at the time was to either become a chemical engineer or a gas engineer. In fact, my vision at the time was very clear: to become the first female gas engineer in sub-Saharan Africa.
mm,
So I got into school, and I started to become I started getting a bit more self-aware. Who am I? What is it about me that makes me me? And I think it was in my 300 level I realized my ability to connect with people relatively easily, even though I'd judged myself as an introvert and
right.
someone who was shy. But I realized I had this natural ability to connect with people, meet them where they're at. And so I started to consider transitioning from engineering to psychology, but that couldn't happen because the system at the time did not just enable such. And so in my final year, during an environmental engineering course, I we studied some tragedies in the chemical industry. And
mm,
what was consistent for me was the involvement of people. There's no explosion that happened without a human's involvement, either with the design, either with safety or lack of safety precautions and whatnot. And so I remember challenging my lecturer at the time to say, how come we never studied about human beings in all of this, entire program? So my quest to begin to work with people started after I left school based on that curiosity I had. And so I got into human resources. I've worked, it's about 15 years now. I've been in the human resources space as a consultant, as a generalist, as a business partner. I've been a specialist too, within the leadership development coaching space. And my portfolio has increased over the years. I've been responsible for different markets in sub-Saharan Africa, from Nigeria, Ghana to Angola, Botswana, Namibia, Zimbabwe, across, a couple of countries in Africa. And in my most recent role, I work as the global diversity talent manager of a company in the chemical industry space. And pretty much what I do is to look after how we are inclusive as an organization in our talent strategies. So that's what my journey has looked like. And of course, outside the 9-to-5 space, I'm a mom. I also have a business where I provide, diverse, personal development services to individuals and organizations. So I've got 3 kids and I live here in the UK. So I hope
great,
that,
great introduction.
yeah,
I mean, I wouldn't have
nice.
done it better.
Oh, no.
Um, but I love what you talked about, solutions. I
Mm,
mean, one of the people that came to mind. Sometimes I like to drop names here. I
mm,
know Faladurotoye was someone who's always saying, "Don't be a part of the problem, be a part of the
mm,
solution."
indeed.
And the fact that you came from that, that mindset to provide solution
Right.
has helped shape how you approach your career. So
Indeed.
walk us through, because when I look at personal growth,
Mm,
oftentimes people tend to ignore the past. They ignore the failures. They ignore where the background. Whereas that is a tool to re-engineer where they're going to go. So talk to us about your past. Your 5 years ago, what were the things that has actually shaped your journey to where you are today? What are the changes you had to make to
mm.
cause a shift in your level now?
I'm even going to go farther than 5 years ago, because when we talk about failure, I won't tell you that I graduated top of my class. No, I didn't. I'm not one of those people who tell you, I was part of the top 5%. No, I wasn't part of the top 5%. I don't even think I made it to the top, God knows what.
Right.
I remember, I think it dawned on me I wasn't going to finish with even a 2-1.
Hmm.
Some people say they discovered they weren't going to graduate with first class. Mine, I wasn't even looking for first class.
That's good.
Just 2-1 was what I wanted to get out of
Hmm.
school with, but
Hmm.
I didn't make it. I didn't even
Hmm.
make a 3 point out of a 5 point CGPA. So it wasn't
Hmm.
like, all those 2-2 of, oh, I almost hit a 2-1, but they didn't give me no.
Right.
I
Right.
not they didn't nobody took it from me. I didn't make it. I didn't make it. And I didn't know how bad it was until my final year. Now, taking you a little bit back to when I was younger, I was the president of one of the STEM initiatives in secondary school. In high school, I was the
Hmm.
president of Jets Club for my school. I used to represent my school in competitions, mathematics, whatnot. So maths was like a game for me. I used to win awards, further maths. In fact, I dropped my local language, all
Hmm.
right, in my O-level examinations, so I could do further maths. I found further maths easier
Hmm.
than my language, and I had a distinction. Just to give you a bit of a picture of where I was coming from. So getting into uni, there was a lot of things going on in my life at the time. I couldn't I couldn't make sense out of, what was going on in my life, and the fact that I needed to do well in my studies. It was overwhelming for me. I lost my dad at some point. I was in some relationships that didn't go right. It was just a lot for me at the time. And by the time I got to my final year and I had some semblance of sanity, it was too
Hmm.
late to build anything. And the impact of that, I didn't understand the impact of it until school, companies started coming to school to recruit students, companies like KPMG, companies like Schlumberger, they will come. I remember sitting in an auditorium where an exam was going to take place for 500 level students, and we sat in, we were waiting. I was looking for an opportunity to change my past, pretty much to change my situation. I felt all I needed was someone who would give me a chance to prove myself, that I might have failed to achieve a 2-1 or a first class, but I had something in me that was still there. But I remember sitting in that auditorium, and the examiner said, you know what, if you're not going to graduate with a second class upper, if you're not going to be a certain age by the time you're leaving school, if you're not this, if you're not that, can you please excuse us? I obviously didn't meet any of the criteria. It was heartbreaking, but I didn't feel it too much because we were quite a number. I mean, I had spent 7 years to study a 5-year course, so we had quite a number of people that maybe by reason of their age, so it didn't hit so badly. And
Right.
then I got this announcement. Schlumberger was coming to school, and they were going to give some sort of preference to female students. So if you're graduating with a second class lower, you would be invited, to still participate in the. I'm like, this is my chance. Let me go for it. And so I went to their stand. I was already, 2-2. And then they said, so what CGPA are you likely going to graduate with? I said, I don't know yet, but they said, are you going to hit the 3 points? I said, no. They said, I'm sorry. Unfortunately, even though we accept second class lower, it's a minimum of 3.0. That hurt. That hurt differently because I had my hopes high, and then it got dashed. And then there weren't too many people. I mean, I remember my friend who we went together. She was going to finish with a 2-2, but she was over the 3.0. So it
Right.
was the number was fewer this time. I didn't have anybody to, so I felt lonely. And it was at that point I felt, something had to change. I needed to design a future that had no correlation with my CGPA.
Come on now.
That had nothing to do with that. So I detached myself. And I remember, I mean, thanks to one of my lecturers at the time who said, he said to us, he said, before I sign you off that you have finished or graduated, he said, I would ask you to write your 5-year goal. He said, I need you to submit your 5-year goal before I discharge you from the department. And everybody was like, oh my God, this guy should let us go, let's go, And for me, it was as if somebody gave me oh my goodness, how do I put it? What you call this,
A
like a
blank canvas.
blank canvas. God bless you. Somebody gave me a black canvas to draw my future. It was as if somebody was saying, you have the chance to make it all right. You have the chance to make it all new. Just tell what you want. And so I remember I sat down that day and I wrote 5 goals for 5 years. Without consulting with my background, without consulting with my failure, I decided what I wanted my future to look like. And we submitted. I didn't even make a copy for myself. Do you know that 3 years after that, every single item had been done? Now, what did I have on my 5-year goal? First was that I would be working with a multinational company, a global multinational company. I will be working as a human resources consultant. I will have an international human resources certification. I will be married, and I will have at least 1 child. At that time, I didn't even have a boyfriend. 3 years after, I was married. I was a consultant at PricewaterhouseCoopers. I already had a certification from the SHRM, which is the Society for Human Resources Management in the US.
Yeah.
And I was married. All right. I was married and I was pregnant with my twins. So in less than 5 years, I had 3 kids. I was married. I was certified. I was working as a consultant in a multinational company, and everything I wanted had been done. So
Hmm.
that shaped how I take my career. I believe that, some philosopher, I can't remember who now, I can't remember his name now. He says the best way to predict the future is to create it.
Credit.
That
Hmm.
is so true. The question is, what sort of future do you envisage for yourself? All you need to do is desire. All you need to do is to say what you want, and then take a step back and begin to build the bridge that will connect you from where you are today to where you want to be. You know, a
Hmm.
growth mindset has always been a quality, because for me, by that decision I made that day to design my future, all I needed to do was keep growing, keep learning, keep taking opportunities, keep getting mentored, exposing myself to right relationships and right people. So that's pretty much what I do with my career. And I'm here where I am today as a result of the combination of many of such decisions. So
Hmm.
yeah.
Great point you mentioned here. I mean, someone listening to it right now need to take a pen and literally design,
I
because
know.
the thing is, this day and age, which is so fast, and people are not. I was sharing. I just finished a podcast before yours, and
Right.
we were talking to the guest, and one of the things I mentioned was the fact that we are so busy working
Mm,
and less busy, or if I use the word less busy, we're so busy working and we're spending less time growing. People are not being intentional about the future, because you could
mm,
wake up in 10, 20 years and you're like, what have I really done? So you've mentioned something that's very critical, that I think people need to begin to sit down. And I remember I did the same thing too back in
mm.
school. I finished from OOU,
No.
Olabi University in Nayetoro. When I tell you that, I'll be like, what? Yeah, and literally, I remember the time, I think, at 400 level, we literally took the map of the world. And I
Mm,
remember three friends then, we picked the countries that we wanted to make impact in. This was back in Ogun State, in one village. We,
mm,
we picked countries, and beyond just praying for those countries, we were
mm,
speaking words that we want to do. Today I'm in Canada. It's not because, interesting, I didn't pick Canada.
mm.
I must be honest. I picked other countries, but we were intentional about, we knew that we're not going to be in Nigeria and the shores of Nigeria. Not Nigeria
Mm,
is not a bad thing, but it's the fact that you have to be intentional about your future and design it. Great
right.
point. And I had to just take, because
Yeah,
sometimes when guests share some
I
gems,
know,
you
right.
just fly like that. I want to just emphasize on
Right.
that point.
Let me quickly say something, Emeka. So I realize that we have two categories of people, some who live life by default
Hmm.
and then by design.
Hmm.
And default mode is whatever comes, let's see how it goes, or whatever will be.
Hmm.
And or being fixated on, this is the only thing I can realize with this. I mean,
Hmm.
I could have said to myself, like, you know what? People finished with distinctions we had over in a class of about 120, we were about 20 something ladies, and in we had about 10% of the class finishing with first class. I mean, a guy finished from my class with 5.0 CGPA, for instance.
Wow.
We had mad, very good. And I'm like, are these the people I'm going to be competing? I'm going to be competing with, I could have accepted my fate to say, you know what, I can't make it. Or
Hmm.
maybe it's not possible. Or people who finish with 2-2, this is the best you can get. And
Hmm.
that's default. Accepting status quo,
Hmm.
that's default. But I remember I stepped out and I said, what companies do I think I would have loved to be employed by, that are currently not looking for my profile?
Hmm.
So maybe like your Chevron or Shell or any of those. I remember stepping back and I remember I went to look at the website of one of those companies. I just said, let me get myself familiar with what they look out for in candidates.
Hmm.
If I don't get it now, I can get it later. All I need to do is to be that person that they are looking for. I won't shock you, but I will tell you that one of those companies
Hmm.
reached out to me this week.
Hmm.
Do you see what I
Come
mean?
on now.
So that's design. That's
Hmm.
design. It just occurred to me, oh my God, I told myself I was going to come back. I said, I'm not going to enter at this level. I'm going to enter at the top. And that's
Hmm.
exactly what's going to happen.
Come on. I mean, this is blowing my mind. Because you know why, one of the reasons I did this podcast is because I beyond writing, I
Mm,
know that this is legacy. I used to tell my guests that what we are saying today would be relevant. Someone is going to listen to it 10 years from now, because I mean, the internet is here to stay, so everything's going to be on the cloud, and someone's going to listen to this in 10 years time and will pick something from it. And you said something very important, which is almost like you're visualizing the future, part of that design.
mm-hmm,
I remember one time as well, and I was sharing with a friend when I came to Canada. One of my goal was to, not just, apart from, I was going to work with organizations, but I wanted to pick up my speaking career, as my speaking,
mm,
opportunities and all. And I remember putting companies that I was going to
mm,
speak at. And recently it dawned on me, because when I looked at the vision board, I said, I was not speaking to the exact organization, but the one even much more bigger than it.
mm,
And these are people that you probably don't won't even get to speak at the organization by as an individual. You probably
mm,
have to have. I haven't even registered my business yet,
mm-hmm,
but just as an individual, by the virtue of the work that you're doing,
mm-hmm.
they're inviting you to come speak. And I remember
Right.
putting that on the board. And sometimes people take this for granted,
Mm,
right? So,
mm.
oh my goodness. Well, this is
Interesting.
beautiful, beautiful. I
Right.
want us to shift gear a little bit to talk about one of the things I believe would enhance the kind of life that we desire is the values.
Mm,
Let's talk about the values that you had to imbibe, that had to be ingrained in you to be able to create the life that you desire.
mm-hmm.
What kind of values would you say that you had to develop, if you had to mention two or three?
I would say the first one would be growth mindset. Not being fixed in your mind that there is one way to anything.
Mm,
There are several ways to get to your destination, several right ways. So I need to qualify ways, several right ways to get to your destination. A fixed mindset only sees one way, but you need to be able to be open-minded to explore. And a growth mindset also lets you not write off yourself when you make mistakes on your journey,
mm,
because it's all part of the learning process. You learn from your mistakes. That's a growth mindset. A growth mindset also is always seeking continuous improvement. You know that you can be better tomorrow than you are today. So
right.
whether you have made mistakes or not, you keep learning. you know um what else? My ability to seek information. I would say I value information. You cannot grow in the dark. All right,
Mm,
you can't grow in the dark. You need to expose yourself to light. Information comes sometimes by association. Reading, a lot of times people say readers are leaders, and that's true. But there's so much more you can read beyond books. You can read people.
mm,
You can study trends. I tell people, if you're stuck, I mean, if readers are leaders, I see a lot of people who read books, but they are not leading nobody.
come on.
So do you see?
Mm,
So you
mm,
need to be able to learn from different sources, read books, read people through mentorship, being mentored, being coached, any of those. I mean, I sought all of those relationships. I'm a product of relationship, right? I love people. I love to give back. That's another value that I have. Now, I believe that the more you empty yourself, the more you see the need to stay filled. A lot
mm,
of times people are stale, like the Dead Sea. The Dead Sea is the only sea that doesn't have an outlet, right? And
mm,
as a result of that, nothing thrives in it. If you don't have an outlet, you can't thrive. Right.
mm.
If all you do is take from people, you want to grow so bad. And there are a lot of people like that. Genuinely, they want to grow, and they think the only way to grow is by receiving. No, there's a dimension of growth that comes by giving.
Come on.
When you begin
Mm,
to mentor people, when you begin to share, sometimes people think it's by gaining clout, like, oh, I don't want to be visible online, oh, it's not my thing. Then what the question is, what is really your thing? What do you think this whole thing is about? Do you think
right.
you know
Right.
you know so I respect giving back. I mean, just before this call, I was already thinking to myself, I was taking a course today, by the way. I was spending
Mm,
2 hours on a website, and I was taking some courses, and all that. And I thought to myself, it's a professional membership I'm a part of. And I just said, you know what, how about I do a giveaway? I mean, how much is that going to cost me? How many people? I'm already thinking of giving access to this platform because of the wealth of information I'm finding on that platform. And I'm like, I could maybe give some subscription access to a certain number of people. Giving, you never lack by giving.
mm,
So I
mm.
love to give. I love to learn. I love to learn. I love to give. So I would say if I should summarize my values, it would be those two,
Those
you
two.
know.
Okay, great, great. Let's shift just a little bit to. I
Right,
want to talk about workplace excellence, because I think
right.
you typify, someone who exude excellence at work. Because
Right.
I'm looked through your profile and the places you've worked at. Now, let's talk about what is workplace excellence, because
Mm,
most of the listeners in this podcast are professionals.
mhm.
So what is workplace excellence, if you to define it?
Right. So, if I'm to describe it from I would try to give a balanced perspective, because if you ask an entrepreneur or a business owner what workplace excellence is, for them it would be about achieving my goals, achieving business objectives, with the right
Right.
talent and all that. But I think no, not I think workplace excellence is actually the realization of both employees' personal aspirations, whilst contributing to business objectives.
Mm,
So you cannot say you are excelling in the workplace if the only thing that is growing is you. If the business you're working in is not achieving its objectives, and you, by one way or the other, you think you're growing, whether they're increasing your salary or you're finding your way to the top one way or the other, it's not balanced, because it's not mutual. So excellence is every contributor or participator in that space, benefiting from that relationship. So I see workplace excellence as a place where professionals are not just giving or making contributions to achieving business objectives, but also finding personal actualization or self-actualization, or achievement of their aspiration. So it's the two way.
okay, great. I want to touch on the part of the professionals themselves
Mm,
trying to develop workplace
excellent.
excellence.
Okay.
um, how can individuals begin to, or what are the qualities that individuals have to develop to begin to display, workplace excellence?
Mm. So let me tell you. Also, so what is so I would like to break it down, right?
Mm,
What is so we're going back to the definition. So workplace excellence is simply excelling in the workplace. What do I need to do to excel in the workplace? Now, you need to go back to, why are you in the workplace in the first place? You're in the workplace to achieve certain goals. You have been hired for a position to contribute to the realization of a bigger strategy or a bigger goal. Now, if you must say that you're excelling in that place, is firstly when you have the competence to deliver on that goal. So if you were hired in any capacity, to contribute to the organization, one, are you competent? Competence is your ability to learn and keep learning. All right.
mm,
So you have the capacity, the capabilities, all right, the attributes to deliver on that. So if you want to excel in the first place, you need to be competent. Having up to date, cutting edge knowledge in your field is very critical. Now, another thing is you need to realize that you are not working in isolation. So it's not just enough to be competent, you need to be collaborative, because your job is not the only job in that organization. So your
yeah,
ability to work well within your team across functions is a key goal to achieving that goal. Do you see what
yeah,
I mean?
yeah,
Now,
yeah,
excelling in the workplace, we've talked about competence, we've talked about collaboration. I would also say vision. You need to be a visionary employee, not just thinking short term. Because a lot of times I see people, they are so short sighted. They make the wrong
mm,
decisions just because of an immediate challenge or an immediate victory. You think you've arrived, or you have gotten to the top just because of something very little. You accomplish a project, yes, we celebrate you, but that's not the peak of your career. I mean, I remember I was talking to a colleague within the HR space some time ago, and he had put up a post on LinkedIn, and he said, I just want to shout out to everybody who has helped me, to get to the peak of my career.
Hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm like, hold on a second. Is it the same HR? I had to check the profile again, like, oh my goodness, is this the peak?
Hmm.
With how big this world is this the peak?
Hmm.
Now I know peak is relative, but
Right.
that doesn't, it just tells me the level of vision that person has. So in terms of excellence, you need to have an audacious vision. You need to have a vision that will stretch you, because growth comes by stretching.
Hmm.
So you need to be visionary, so that the success of today does not become your limitation tomorrow.
Hmm.
So you need to think steps ahead. One of the habits of highly effective people by Stephen Covey is, he says, they begin with the end in mind. That you must have a vision, you must have a destination in your mind. So it's not just that job you got. The question is, after this, so what next? What are you working towards? So you need to have that, because it helps you to strive for excellence. And I must say that excellence is also not a destination, it's a journey. So once you achieve a level of excellence today, know that there's a higher level. And the more you strive to that, you see your capacity expanding. And that's when you begin to attract, bigger projects, bigger opportunities. And, you just see yourself excelling, and
Hmm.
expanding the boundaries of your field. So
Yeah.
that's what I would
Great.
say. Yeah.
Great. I want to, because one of my passion is when I see, people excel in the workplace. And I'm going to be giving a talk very soon about it, and it's about the fact that most people uh we talk about burnout, and people are
Mm,
not happy in the workplace.
mm,
People are getting fatigue and all of that,
mhm,
even though they initially came to the organization because they were excited, they have a
mm.
lot to offer, but at the point they're getting burned out, and probably not giving their best anymore. So
Right.
what would you say, what would be the advice you give to people to rekindle that fire that brought them into the organization to want to deliver, and maybe after 5 years or so, the energy is low. People are, yeah, they're burnt out. They're no longer giving us, because that affects their excellence. What advice would you give that has helped you, in the course of your career, to keep pushing for more, right? Because sometimes you get that point where you feel like, what is this? What am I even doing here? How have you kept that momentum going to still strive for excellence?
Let me tell you, the reason why people burn out, I'm trying to find the best way to put this. The reason why people burn out is because they are not, should I say, born in. Yeah, but let me just, you see, burnout talks about a state of feeling expended. You feel like, you're in a state where you have given so much and you feel so empty, you feel drained, you feel worn out, you feel
Hmm.
tired, you feel exhausted.
Hmm.
And it's an indication that as you were given, you were not feeding yourself back.
Come on. Hmm.
A lot
Hmm.
of people don't pay attention to what feeds their energy. People are not conscious of it. We talk about living life by default and design.
Hmm.
People don't know that they have to be intentional with not just rest, because you can be idle and be tired.
Hmm.
So burnout is not a function of even the volume of work you're doing. It's a state of the mind.
Hmm.
Do you see what I mean? There are
Yeah.
people who are so busy, so engaged, and they feel like bring it on. They still feel so energized. So it's not a state of the volume of work, it's a state of not feeding the right energy spots in them. Now, what do I mean by that? As professionals, you need to recognize that your existence is not just to do work. First of all, there should
Hmm.
be a bigger purpose to the job that you're doing. Why are you working? you know why are you working? Why are you in that field? Why are you doing this job you're doing? Until
Hmm.
you find a bigger why, you will discover that any little shaking on that job shakes your whole being. It throws you out of course. You
Hmm.
see, one of the things I've learned to do is to reward myself. I enjoy the work that I do, not just from the angle of being passionate about my profession, but I reward myself for good job done. What are the
Hmm.
ways that I feed myself? Apart from the fact that I try to rest, I pay attention to how much the quality of sleep that I have. I'm not even going to talk about the quantity now. The quality of sleep, I rest, yeah. But beyond resting, what do I love? I love looking good, Emeka.
Hmm.
I love looking good. I love looking
I can
good.
tell from your shoot.
No, seriously,
You're
yeah.
you're updating your profile.
Don't go there.
Oh my
But
goodness.
seriously though,
Hmm.
I love looking good.
Hmm.
I reward myself for a good job done. See, your salary is not your reward. You know
Come on.
why? Because when your salary comes, you pay bills. It means that somebody else is coming to take your money from you.
Hmm. Hmm.
So you at the end of the month, for some people, they don't take themselves out. Find what works for you. Maybe I'm just talking about me. I love to shop and buy things for myself within reasonable limits, of course, within the bigger context of what my budget allows me to spend. But I take care of myself because I don't want to hate the job that I do. I don't want to hate the fact that I go to work. I don't want
Hmm.
to hate the fact that I don't want to feel like I'm giving so much and nothing is coming to me. I feed my passion. I
Hmm.
feed the things I love. I love spending time with my friends or family. I love to watch a good movie. I've seen a movie today. Most like I watch a movie at least 3 times in a week. Why
You're
can't
going
I watch?
against
I
the
wa-
popular
I
TikTok.
know I watch movies. I watched one today. I watched one yesterday. I'm sure I might still watch one this night. I don't know. But I pay attention. It feeds me because when I do that, I don't feel like I'm owing myself anything. I wake up each day feeling fulfilled, like today is another day. I mean, of course, I have a team, I have a support system, I have friends who, when I'm tired, when I feel tired, I have friends who feed me, but I don't collapse. I don't feel all that. Feed your energy. Giving to people also is a way of fulfillment for me. It gives me
Right.
self-satisfaction. So find what works for you as a professional. Don't be, when you're burning out, it means that you're giving more than you're receiving. Step back and ask yourself, what do I need to receive now? Is it self-care? Is it rest?
You're
Is
just
it
speaking it from
a
my head.
holiday? Yeah. Is it, and go for it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you've touched on something that's very, very critical because in this day and age, there's a lot of message around hustle. There's a lot of
Mm,
message around, don't sleep 3 hours. It's what are you sleeping 8 hours? And I mean, it works for some
mm.
people,
Yeah.
but some people are not wired that way,
Mhm,
right? So it's okay to rest. It's okay to find other areas, and that's one of the things I want to talk about it as well.
mm,
I always strongly encourage people who work 9 to 5 to find something else, because I believe that as humans, as people, like you said, we're not meant to go one path. The gift and talent that has been placed in us, by God, has requires multiple expression in different
mhm,
areas. And
mhm.
those expressions is what are the things that give us the fulfillment, the energy to keep
Indeed.
going.
Mhm.
So talk to us about how you've been able to, in spite of your work, still be able to I mean, I was looking at your website. I was like, you have courses, and I know beyond the fact that they give you income, because one of your I noticed that one of your goals is to
Mm,
help professionals make extra income, but they also give you fulfillment. So talk to how you've been able to navigate working 9 to 5 or working
mm.
as a corporate professional, but still able to express other areas of your gift, your talent, and share your story as well.
I'm sure you can already tell I love to talk. I was hoping you will hit that part of me and then I will bust out. I will come from two angles. I made a discovery in 2016, 17 ish
Hmm.
that changed my life forever. I'm not going to talk about my life and not talk about 2016, 2017,
Mm.
And I made the discovery about time. Oh my God. Time is one of the most treasured possessions anyone. And I know we know this, right? But if what you know does not influence how you approach life, then you don't know it like you should.
That's right.
So
That's right.
people can know time from, oh yeah, you have 24 hours in a day. But let me tell you. So I realized that, for many years we've been told that time is money,
Mm.
so don't waste it.
Mm.
I challenge that school of thoughts. I disagree with it very strongly. It is offensive and very wrong to equate time and money. That's reducing that's reducing what time is. Because there was a time money was not existing, but time existed.
That's right.
So don't equate time and money. Time is not money. Money can be lost and gained back. You lose time, you have lost it. You don't gain it back.
Mm.
So time and money are not the same thing. Time is a measure of life.
That's right.
See, for every TikTok is life going. Every
Mm.
TikTok you hear, you are getting older by the second. Do you see what I mean?
That's right.
We are getting older by the second. It's so you can't even, in fact, I tell people these days, don't say time management. You only manage what you have control over. You have no control over time. So stop saying you are managing time.
Mm.
What you do is to manage what you do in time.
Mm.
You see, we have 24 hours a day. It's not going to change. There's nobody you will negotiate with. You can't change it. But what do? There's several things, and I'm going to start from one angle, from a more global perspective than on an individual perspective. I try to shock professionals, when they tell me, I would have loved to go for that vacation, but I don't have time. I would have loved to pursue my side gig or any other thing that gives me passion, but time.
Mm.
And then I'm like, are you really sure time is the problem? And
Mm.
then we do this mathematics, okay? So there are 365 days in a year. Now, out of these 365 days, we have 52 weekends, 52 Saturdays, and 52 Sundays,
Mm.
making 104. Now, if you remove 104, 365 minus 104, you have 261 days left. Now, I removed Saturdays and Sundays because a typical professional, I'm using, assuming, a 9 to 5 professional who doesn't do a Sunday,
On
Saturday,
Saturday.
Saturday, Sunday work, and you work, let's even say it's not 9 to 5, let's say it's 8 to 5. Okay. You
Mm.
work Monday to Friday. Now, in 1 year, you have an average of 20 annual leave days. Maybe annual leave days, right?
Yeah.
Your annual
2015.
2015-ish.
Mm.
So let's stick with 15. Let me use the lower band.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
15 means that you have 3 weeks of Monday to Fridays that you're not expected to go to work. Am I correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
15 days.
Correct.
So I'm going to remove that 15 days in addition to the 104 days that I've removed. Okay.
Mm.
So minus 15, we have
Mm.
246 left. Okay.
Mm.
Now, we also have bank holidays or public holidays.
Right. Especially
Typically,
in Canada, we have a lot.
how many do you have in Canada?
Oh my goodness! Like we have one coming up in few days or few weeks. Yeah,
Mhm.
we have almost every month we have at least two public holidays. So
Wow.
there's I think this March I think we have one this March. I'm
Mm.
not too sure. I
Sure.
can't remember the name of that holiday, but we
If we're
have
to,
holiday.
if we're to go with 2 public holidays in a month, that's about 24 in a year. But let
Yeah.
me not be that generous. Let me use the more conservative in the UK, where we have between 8 and 10. So I'm going to stay with 10. I think it's about 10 public holidays. That's
Right.
another 10 days. All right. Now, in some countries, they have more. Canada, Nigeria. So I'm going to use 10 days. So I'm going to take off 10 days from this 246. That's 236 days left. 236 days. Now, we work 40 hours a week, 8 hours a day, typically, All right.
Yeah.
8 hours in a day. Now,
Mhm.
8 hours out of 24 hours is 1/3.
Yeah.
All right. One
Hmm.
third. So if I want to find out what we have left, so of these 236 days, which is your total now, have I even removed? Yes, which these 246 days, 236 days is now your total working days in a year. I've
Yeah.
removed the weekends, I've removed the annual leave, and I've removed the bank holidays. Okay.
Yes.
So these
Yes.
are the number of working days left. And you only work a third of the day, 1/3 of the day, which is eight
Yeah.
hours a
Eight
day.
hours.
So I'm
Yeah.
going to divide what we have left by 3. I mean, the real hours. Do you understand what I mean? To
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
the what the number of hours come to in a year, that's 78.66.
Days.
That is no, yeah, days in a year. That means in 1 year, where you have 365 days,
You only work.
translating your hours into days is not even up to 80 days. It's not up to 1/4 of the year.
Hmm. Hmm.
Do you see? Now, sometimes people are like, oh, okay, no, that I don't agree. I don't agree. I don't quite agree. I'm like, okay, let's use another formula.
Hmm.
There are
Wow.
52 weeks in a year. You have annual leave of 3 weeks. So remove 3 from 52. You have 49. You
Right.
have bank holidays of 2 weeks. You have 47 left. Are you with me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now you work 40 hours a week. 40 hours times 47 is what? 1880. Divided by 24. You still get 78. So how do you want to calculate it that you're not coming back to 7? So
Yeah.
that annual salary you get is for 78 days in a year.
Hmm.
So a lot of times I then go on and build on this and say, divide your annual salary by 78 so that you really have an idea of how much your job is earning per day, per the day that you work. So the next time you're wasting your 24 hours, you just use that to have an idea of how
Hmm.
much money you are wasting. When you put things in perspective, I mean, I know people can relate with money a little bit more. Just to
Right.
monetize, let's just try. I know I won't equate time and
Hmm.
money, but
Hmm.
just so you have an idea of how people have estimated your time. If you're earning, let's say, $150,000 in a year, $150,000, you divide that by 78. It means that your 1 day rate is 1,920, sorry, $1,923 per day. So when you are just whiling the day away, doing nothing that matters to you, like you're not resting like you should, it's your leave day and you're not resting like you should, ask yourself, is this thing that is taking my time worth it?
Hmm.
This
Hmm.
thing is costing me almost $2,000. Is it worth it? Do you see what I mean? Your day
Hmm.
becomes expensive, and that's the least it can get. Do you
Hmm.
see? So for me, everything changed
You
the
came
moment
ready.
I realized.
You came ready for this podcast.
I know. So I started to
Wow.
live life differently. So if I have a 9 to 5, I mean, that's how much I've contracted my time to my employer. The question is, how do I make my 5 to 9 count?
Count.
My life out of work, how do I make it count? Do you see?
Hmm.
So sometimes people are like, when you do this analysis, are you trying to tell us to not? No, no, no. I'm telling you to let you realize how much time you have available at your disposal to do whatever you think is is convenient or is profitable or is makes you happy.
Wow. This is a shift away from time management to life management. And if you look at it
Absolutely.
that way, you understand that there's more
Mm,
to you,
mhm,
right? Because
mhm.
what happens is that people walk and that's all they think about. And one thing, one of the guests I had earlier on said she doesn't want to get to the end of her life or 60 or
Mm,
70 and then begin to regret that there are things that she wish she had done. Or maybe when
right.
she gets to heaven, God will now pull up the screen and say, this is this is welcome, my dear daughter. But let me show you what you will have, what more
You
you
could
could have
have
done
done.
with your life. And she doesn't want, and that's so eye opening for us
It
because,
is.
hmm, interesting.
So when you combine what she said about, I don't want to leave any gifts unused, I don't want to leave any potential untapped. When you have that mindset and you realize how much time you have available, you realize that nothing should stop you.
Nothing,
Nothing
nothing.
should stop you. I mean, I had to step back at that point in my life to say, hold on a second. So, this is how I do it. I have 24 hours in a day. How much time do I need to spend in commuting to work and back? How much time do I need to spend with family? What is important to me? Because I think it's John Maxwell who said, a successful life is a series of successful days.
Mm,
So if you want to know whether you're going, yeah, and if we go back to what we said earlier about predicting the future, the way to predict the future is to
to
create
create
it,
it.
create your day. You want to have a successful day, define what success is for you that day. What is success for me? That's why I show up on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is
Hmm,
a platform where I impact people. At
hmm,
least I use my different social media channels to inspire people. you know I must do that on a daily basis, even if nothing. So I do my 9 to 5, I do family, of course I do God, I do my wellness, and then I spend time to be a blessing to people.
honest.
Now, every day, that's why I can't feel guilty that I'm watching a movie, because it's somewhere in the plan.
Hmm, hmm.
I'm not as I'm sitting with you, I don't have any regret as I'm sitting down as at today. I mean, I was telling a friend like a couple of weeks ago in February, I said, do you know it feels strange to me to say this to you, that I already feel like I have a fulfilled 2023.
Hmm.
I feel like I have a fulfilled year already. Why? Because the things I want to do, I'm getting them done on a daily basis.
That's right.
Right.
That's right. If you want to have a
Yeah.
successful life, have a successful day. We need to
Yeah.
highlight that. It's so
Yeah.
important
Right.
because I look. When I look at people, and
Mm,
I'm also myself be like, how do you have a
mm,
family? I have a wife. I have two kids that keep me busy.
of
Two girls
course.
as well.
Oh,
And then when I
yeah.
say your twins, I was like, oh my goodness, two
Yeah,
wonderful girls
yeah.
that keep me busy. And I walk, but I still have
Mm,
time for podcast. I still have
right.
time to write
And this is the
because
second one today.
the
Hmm.
second one today, because everything is prioritized, everything
Hmm.
is planned, and we can, and there's so many tools. So let's talk about the tools. I like to
Hmm.
give practical tools. What are the tools that you've actually used to plan your life that has, because in this day and age with technology and all of that, there's
Hmm.
something that's working for you that
Hmm.
you have been able to you establish. So what would you say?
I, I,
You
w- I wish I could sound so jazzy and snazzy and maybe say things like I use Chat GPT, all of those things. But I would say it's been Excel and my alarm clock.
hmm, hmm, hmm. You
you know,
remind me
so
of Maureen. Yes.
my
Hmm.
Excel and my alarm clock. With an Excel, I plot my day, my week. So, what are the things I would do every day? You know, I can tell you what I would do between when I wake up and 12 noon.
Yeah.
I
When you
can
give me
tell.
the time, you're the first guest that will tell me that will tell me this time has to be this. I'm like, oh my goodness.
For real.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, see, I've beaten it now because you're quite engaging.
Hmm, hmm,
I try to do that because for me, it's technology overwhelms me. So I
hmm.
try to minimize it.
That's right.
But
That's right.
I'm in the flow.
Hmm.
So having said that, I know what I'm doing between a certain time and a certain time. It's just there. But I have an alarm. I have an alarm by 8:30. I tell you, this phone is going to ring for me to go and wash my face.
Hmm.
I set everything because somebody said, I learned it,
Come on.
it says, you don't prioritize your schedule, you schedule your priorities.
Come on. Hmm.
A lot of times people have this list, to-do list, and it's okay to have to-do list. I do too. But the problem with people not doing their to-do list, because not everybody does to do. because to do is never scheduled to be done.
We have to write down
To do is not scheduled to be
to
done.
be done.
So you now see that people are doing what they never even imagined they would do. So life that they intended is always in a sheet of paper called to-do list. And then there's a totally different life that they are in the reality. So they lie down every day, always hoping maybe tomorrow I will do things differently. Okay. So I always schedule my priorities. What do I need to do? It's on my phone. And one thing you need to realize is life is seasons, life is transient. Now I had younger kids. I have 3 kids, but now they are older. My schedule is not the same today as it was 2 years ago. It evolves because your life is not static. So one of the beautiful things we need to learn to do as professionals is being very mindful and aware. You can't live life on default mode, like you are in a subconscious or subconscious realm. No, you need to be fully present. You need to be fully present. A lot of people are living life like they are living from their subconscious. Let me give you
Like
an
a
example.
treadmill.
Maybe like a treadmill. Emeka, has it ever happened to you that you maybe when office was still physical, maybe you go to the office and then you come back home, and then one day your wife calls you and says, "Please, could you please stop at Walmart and get us XYZ?" And you're like, "Okay, I'm going to make it happen." And then you get to the gate of your house and then you realize, oh my God, I was supposed to get something. And then you quickly go back and then you realize, oh my God, I drove straight home, just because you have configured yourself in a certain way from house to the home, to my house, sorry, from the office back home, office home. If there's any change, because it's not programmed within your subconscious, you miss it. Because you were driving from the office in a subconscious mode. You were in a default mode, not design. So anything that should have been done is outside that programming. And so you're in autopilot. That's the word, autopilot. But life cannot be run on autopilot. What is important today? What do I need to move? What will give me Brian Tracy will say things like, write down your 10 most important goals for the year. Sorry, your 5, I think. 5 most important goals. You write it down, then he will ask you, what is that one goal that if you achieve it this year will give you the biggest impact on the rest of the goals? Once you identify it, that's the one for you to focus on. Because when that bigger one is done, every other thing is, it's like eating your frog. It makes it easy. So I tell people, schedule your priorities, but please be present in your priorities. Okay?
That's right.
Schedule your priorities, but be in charge of it. Be flexible. Be adaptable. Yeah.
Flexible. I mean, this conversation has turned to different. It's almost like life management. Do you have a life management course? Because you should create one. But really, this has been enlightening. I want to talk.
I know.
I mean,
oh my God.
So
that's why
right
we're
now, I
here.
want to talk about the so I'm mindful of your time. I want you to share on the what are the common mistakes that people make. And I know you've touched on this, Eden, but I wanted to kind of highlight it more. What are the common mistakes that people make when it comes to the idea of I'm shifting gear now from excellence now, but what are the common mistakes people make when it comes to leading their life and achieving excellence? Because it's not just the workplace now. Excellence cut across different areas, even excellence in your life. So what are the common mistakes that people make today?
I think one of the common mistakes people make is not taking responsibility. And
Mm.
people will hate to think that they are not taking responsibility. They believe they are taking responsibility. But on one hand, they think they are taking responsibility. But on the other hand, they blame systems. They blame organizations. They blame their bosses for reason why certain
Mm.
things are not happening.
Not happening.
So you
Mm.
hear things like, oh, I wasn't promoted because my boss does not promote me. Or they didn't give me that promotion. My boss didn't give me that promotion. My boss didn't give me that. And I get it. I get what they are saying. They are reporting things as a fact. But the question is, what could you have done to get your boss to be positively disposed towards you in
Mm.
order to make that happen?
Mm.
What could you have done?
Mm.
Because if you don't recognize what you could have done differently, then what's the guarantee that next year you're not going to be in the same cycle?
Mm.
You need to take responsibility. You need to ask yourself, what could I have done differently? What could
Mm.
I have done differently? So that's very key. Another thing, another mistake people make is being short-sighted. Oh my goodness, I've seen people take decisions for the very wrong reasons. I mean, short-sighted reasons. Short-sighted reasons. So let me give you an example. Somebody moved to the UK and sent me a CV to say, Dupe, I hear you're in the UK. I'm an HR person. We belong to the same HR group or something like that. And I am looking for a job that will sponsor me. So I was thinking you could help.
Mm.
So I said, send me your CV first of all. I looked at the CV. I looked at all the different places this person has worked. I looked at the qualification. There was nothing UK there. I said, did you arrive in the UK by surprise?
Mm.
Did you wake up and then you found yourself? You didn't, I mean, I didn't say this directly, just kidding, but
Mm.
that was all that was going on in my head. Not even a certification. I mean, I know that sometimes getting to work in multinational organizations can be out of reach. Maybe not everybody gets a chance to work in their local countries. So maybe you didn't get the chance to work in a global brand, but a global certification is up for grabs. You knew you were going to come to the UK, but all you invested money into were local. How do you play global with local?
Mm.
But
Mm.
wait, how do you do that? Short-sightedness, not preparing for the opportunity. I never prepared for the opportunity. I mean, I remember when I left school as a student, as I was graduating, my goal was that I would have one global certification in a field that I had never even heard about. I was
Mm.
getting out of engineering for the first time trying to explore HR, and I was telling myself, I'm going global. I didn't do any local certification. I mean, until one of my employers said, we need you to have local certification, and they decided to pay for it. The moment I left them, that was the last time I took that exam. Because this is not where I intend to play. This is not where I want to compete. You need to be futuristic.
Mm. Short-sightedness. Mm.
Short-sightedness, all right, not taking responsibility, short-sightedness. Another is inability to process feedback in a constructive manner. Sometimes people don't realize that feedback is not personal.
Mm.
So we can be a bit emotional about feedback, but you need to be open to feedback. And the reason why we need to be open to feedback is because we have blind spots. Emeka,
That's
there's
right.
something called the Johari window.
Yeah.
The Johari
Yeah.
window.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Johari window is, where it talks about your blind spot. Your blind spot is the spot where it's visible to others, but it's not visible to you.
Yeah.
And we all have blind spots. So when people give you feedback, sometimes it can hurt, especially when it's not, a positive feedback. It can hurt. I mean, I know someone who had told me before, said, "Dupe, um, you know, this is not quite me, but I think you are humbly proud."
Whoa.
I
Okay.
said, humbly proud. wow, I'd never, this was a stakeholder of mine, and he honestly said that. And I'm like, what does that mean?
Mm.
How does it look like? That was me genuine. I mean, I wanted to know how do I behave when I do that? It's not a case of saying, what does that even mean? Do you know what you are saying? No. It's what does it look like? Because I may not agree with the word, but I definitely need to understand the behavior
Yeah.
I demonstrate.
Wow.
Now he said, I can't think of anything right now. I said, okay, whenever I show it, please call my attention to it immediately so that I'm able to recognize it and address it. Do I
Mm.
have to quarrel with? No, we don't have to. Did I agree with that position? Not quite, but I can't challenge his perception of me. I just need to understand it.
Hmm.
You see?
Hmm.
So I will stop there for now.
Whoa, whoa. You don't have to challenge it, just understand it. And that is very critical because a lot of people have broken relationships that would have helped them advance because of what they perceive to be a wrong perception of them that was actually a feedback that they could use to improve themselves. And they're like, oh, he's talking about, especially in this part of the world where minority, visible minority and all, and we get feedback from people that we work with, our colleagues, and they're like, oh, this person. I remember when I was working and I wanted to get promotion
Mm.
and all. And I know my people in Nigerians that are working there then, said, make don't do this. These people would, the white people would talk you. Once you begin to go for promotions and opportunities,
Mm.
they'll begin to go after you because this has happened to me before. I'm like, that happened to you before.
Mm.
What did you learn from it? Or was it that you just took it as a reality and then it
Mm-hmm.
changed how you approach life? Look, I don't want to take much of your time. I know you have a lot to share.
That's fine.
Before you go, I ask my guest final three questions. So
Right.
the first question you can answer in one word or you can speciate, and that is this: what has investment in? Because I know you're part of the John C. Maxwell community.
Yeah.
What has your investment in your self leadership? What has it contributed to your advancement?
Oh my goodness. And my life is a bundle of stories. Let me
Hmm.
tell you, I took a bet on myself,
Hmm.
and that's how I became a member of the John Maxwell team. Now, prior to that time, I told you that I'm always learning. I'm always learning. And I usually save towards my learning investments.
Hmm.
But this particular year, I stumbled on a profile on LinkedIn. I mean, I realized there was something called the John Maxwell team, and I started to make inquiries. And I saw that it was going to cost. Okay, before I found the John Maxwell, this particular year, I made a decision to acquire a skill that will make me relevant in any country of the world I decide to live in.
Hmm.
And so I started to ask around, what skill can I have that will make me unlimited in my career? And SAP was the thing at the time. And I did some inquiries. It was going to cost me about $3,000 to get certified, but then I needed to make a trip to South Africa to be residential for the SAP learning and then the exam, maybe a week. Everything was going to be an additional almost 2 million with a 3,000. And I'm
Hmm.
like, sure. My whole university fee is not even up to 1 million. Like,
Hmm.
what's going on? Now, there are people who have invested much more in their career. Maybe they've gone for masters or MBA. I don't even know what that would have cost me if I wanted to do that at the time, because a master's wasn't in my radar, because
Right.
as a professional, I understood the value of experience more than all those. In fact, certifications will give you more value than a typical master's
Degree.
if you
Hmm.
don't have the right experience, right?
Hmm.
Now, so I wasn't gone in for master. So my comparison was certifications I had been doing in the past within the space of HR, and this SAP certification. I'm like, this is almost God knows how much more than what I'd been. So it shook me like,
Hmm.
this is out of the ordinary. But then I didn't throw off the idea. Remember, you need to be open-minded. So I started to ask myself, what can I do? What else can I explore? So I stumbled on the John Maxwell. Now, the John Maxwell was going to cost $5,000,
Yeah.
excluding flight and other logistics. And I'm like, this one is, what was the difference really? You know? And then around that period, I stumbled on a particular billboard in Lagos, Nigeria. And the billboard was a bank product asking people to come and take a loan for a Valentine's getaway.
Hmm.
I'm like, you're kidding me. Like, people will take a loan
Wow.
for
Okay.
vows? What? What? Who are they normal? Is this normal? And I quickly translated that to, if someone can do that, is your dream
Hmm.
worth much more? People take loan to build houses because they know a house is an asset. Can you take a bet on yourself that you're an asset? How much of an asset do you think you are
Hmm.
in order to make that sort of commitment and investment in yourself? I said, wow.
Hmm.
I had always thought I was an asset, but this time around, I saw it in a different way. Because when you say people are asset, people don't know the meaning of asset. An asset is an item that adds value to an
Hmm.
entity.
Come on.
A
Hmm.
liability takes away its
Hmm.
costs. Asset adds money, adds value. So when you say you're an asset, people can take a loan to buy assets. So because I'm an asset, I can invest in myself so that I appreciate in value.
That's right.
And so I went to take a loan. So I
Hmm.
took a loan at the time, and I was to pay in installment, really. I had the option of paying in installment. But then I said, I want every access I need to get into that program. I don't want to do installments that they will now say, we'll open this one for you now next week. Let me have everything. So I took a loan so I could have access. Emeka, that was one of the greatest decisions I made in my career, because I made payments this week. The following week, dollar went up and doubled. So it was at the time dollar was 160 to the
Hmm.
naira. By the
Right.
following week, it had doubled. Now, it's not just so much about that it doubled, but a couple of months after, certain things had happened in my organization that I was able to bring some of the learnings from this certification to bear.
Hmm.
And I won an award. And that award paid me 3 times what I invested in my
Come
certification.
on.
Do you see what I mean?
Hmm.
Now that's
Hmm.
the least return. I just gave that to show you that John Maxwell doesn't owe me any money. I've made my profit off. Not to
Hmm.
now talk of the relationships, not to now talk of the different opportunities I have attracted as a result of being a member of this. So I really can't quantify it,
Hmm.
but it's been an amazing journey being a
Amazing
member
journey.
of that family, but more importantly, investing in this brand called Dupe Akinsiun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a strong brand,
I
and
know.
I like your brown color as well. I think it's red.
Yeah,
You changed recently to red.
it's red. It's
It's
red.
red.
It's
Yes.
red. Yeah.
Great, great. Second question. What is
Right.
your, if you're going to pass on a piece of advice to the younger generation
Hmm.
coming behind you that has made the most impact to your life,
Mm.
right? Either a woman or man, what would that advice be?
Don't write yourself off.
Hmm.
Never write yourself off. No
Hmm.
matter how down you feel you are today, don't write yourself off. Do you see?
Hmm.
Um,
Okay.
your vision doesn't cost a dime. I look at where I'm coming from, and if I knew that this journey was what if I saw this future, and I'm not even where I'm going, I'm not even where I'm going, I'm not near yet. If I saw this then, I mean, when KPMG walked me out of the auditorium the other day, and maybe I wouldn't have even bothered. I wouldn't
I
have
guess what
bothered.
KPMG walked me out too. I remember walking out of that hall. I think that's in
Oh
Victoria Island, or where was that their office?
my
And I actually had to walk out because they said if you don't have a first class, if you don't,
God.
I had to stand
Then
up myself, carry myself, judge.
humbly. Now let me tell you,
Hmm.
I didn't work with KPMG, I worked with PricewaterhouseCoopers.
Hmm.
Now, I mean, I left school, I started my journey into HR, and I found, in fact, it was my line manager who called my attention to the advert that year to say PwC was recruiting, and they were recruiting people with second class lower.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
the only clause was you should have had a minimum of 6 distinctions in your O levels. I had 8 distinctions. And I went online, did all the research, that had to be done. And I prepared voraciously. It was bad. It was crazy. I nailed the exam, nailed the interview, and I got into PwC. I thought, did they make mistake? Because years later, I realized that they don't hire tutu typically. And then in 2019, I was invited as a guest speaker to their International
Wow.
Women's Day.
Oh, nice.
And I shared my story. A partner was there and he said that year was the year they decided, and they have never done it again.
Hmm.
So consider people with second class lower. Now, I joined PwC. The year I joined PwC was the year I was to clock 25. I would have exceeded the age limit
Hmm.
if I didn't resume in October. So we resumed in October. I clocked 25 in November.
November.
Everything in my life aligned with, I didn't know how things would pan out,
Hmm.
but things did pan out. Of course, I put in the work. I had a vision of what I wanted. And eventually, everything worked together for my good. I left
Amazing.
PwC on celebrated. If
Come on.
I look back, I can go back. But having said that, my advice would be do not write yourself off. See, every journey of your life is working together to write a beautiful story if you let it. So don't write yourself off.
Don't write
Okay?
yourself off. And I think I'll add to that. Don't write your story off. Because
Indeed.
people tend to write off their story. I'm like, oh, and
Indeed.
that's why sometimes I share, and people are like, and I've noticed that when I share personal stories like that, that is the one that gets the highest engagement, and
Oh,
people
yeah.
are asking you how, and people
Question.
connect with it because people connect with
The
stories,
stories,
right?
absolutely.
Last question is what would you say showing up
Mhm.
means to you? What
Showing
would
up.
yes, when it comes to your career, as a career professional, corporate professional, what does showing up mean to you?
Showing up is a combination of content and courage. Okay.
Hmm.
So it's both internal and external. How you show up, because um, there's a lot that shows on the outside that starts from within. Someone will
Hmm.
say your attitude is the reflection of your mind. All right. Now, you need to show up confident. You need to show up competent. If you're not competent, it will make you lack confidence. Right. If you don't have competence, if you show up, it's going to make you lack confidence. And
Hmm.
your courage can never make up for a lack of competence.
Hmm.
Do you see what I
Hmm.
mean? Some people
That's
try
right.
to look the part, but they
Hmm.
are very empty.
On the inside. Hmm.
So strike the right balance between your courage, your charisma with your content,
That's right.
with your
That's right.
competence, and with your character. So when you walk into the room, it's not just about turning the heads. you need to get the heads nodding too. You need to
Mm.
get people in the room agreeing
Just
with
like I'm
you
nodding my
because you
head.
make sense. Because you make sense. You need to make
Mm.
sense, not just
That's
make
right.
up, make sense. Because some
Mm.
people make up, they don't make sense.
Come on. I should make this episode exclusive.
Some people make up, they don't make sense. You need
Mm.
to make sense as much as you make up.
Pick up.
All right.
That's right.
So your
Mm.
showing up is a combination of your confidence, your competence, your courage, your charisma, and all of that character. Because
That's right.
all of that affects, showing up. So that's showing up for
Great.
me.
Great.
Thank
You
you.
know what? I know we wanted to do what an hour, but
I know, I
I've been
know.
able to, take you through this time, and I'm so grateful for the time that you have
It's
taken
a
to
pleasure.
share this knowledge and insight, with listeners. I myself have learned from this episode, and
Thank you.
I'm grateful. If we were to connect with you, or listeners to connect with you, where's the best platform on social media?
LinkedIn. LinkedIn.
LinkedIn.
So
Yeah.
yeah, my name is Dupe Akinsiun on LinkedIn, and that's where I'm the most active. Instagram as well, Dupe Akinsiun. I'm quite active there. So those are my
Yeah.
two main social media
Yeah.
channels.
And she has over 100,000, I must say that, followers on LinkedIn. So it's
It's
just so
fine.
you know.
Thank you.
But
It's a
grateful for
pleasure.
this opportunity, Dupe. I believe that this is going to be, because one of the things I tell my guests is that this conversation is a legacy. It's going to stay here, and people are going to benefit from it. So thank you for pointing out from the
Thank,
depth that you have.
thank you
Um,
for having me.
I would say one more thing is, do you have any program, anything coming up that people can tap into, resources? I'm going to put your website and all your
Mhm.
social media profiles in the show notes. But is there anything coming up that you want people to be aware of?
Nothing at the moment,
Not
I
in that
must say.
moment. Okay, so
Mhm. I'm
but
I'm
at least,
still on holiday.
okay, I see. Okay, so I put you out on your holiday. Sorry about that.
Just kidding.
Well, thank you for the
Thank
time,
you so
and
much,
I'm
Emeka.
grateful.
I really
Hopefully,
appreciate
next
it.
time we invite you again, you join us on the show.
It's a pleasure. Thank
All
you.
right. Yeah.